Certain exercises can potentially do more harm than good, and unfortunately many of these exercises are very common. Most people assume that any machine that's put into a gym is safe and effective to use, but that's not at all the case. Having many different machines in a gym may be helpful for selling gym memberships, but basic dumbbells and barbells are typically far more effective than the vast majority of the complex machines that you see at your gym. So today I want to zoom in and focus on 8 machines that you're better off replacing or at least changing how you use them. Starting first with the very popular Smith machine. Now, the Smith machine can actually be effective if you perform certain exercises that can only be done on the Smith machine. However, most people use the Smith machine as an alternative to exercises like squats, deadlifts, and bench press, which were all intended to be done with a regular barbell. Many people performing these exercises on the Smith machine are under the impression that it'll decrease the risk of injury, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The issue is that the Smith machine is locked into a set range of motion and has a set barbell path. This means when you're bench pressing, for example, the barbell is forced to go up and down in a fixed, straight line. This is bad for your shoulders and it increases the chances that you flare your elbows out as you lower the barbell down. In a regular bench press, your path would almost be an arc-like motion from lockout down to your chest. Looking at squats, we see a similar issue. Since the bar is locked into a set range of motion, squatting on a Smith machine isn't biomechanically natural. This is why most people end up squatting by leaning back against the bar. Not only does this take away huge benefits for your core, glutes, and hamstrings, but if you were to lean back like that using a regular barbell, you would fall straight back. On top of the bad positions that your joints are going to be in, you're not going to be working your stabilizer muscles since the bar is locked and already stabilized for you. In fact, stabilizer muscle activation is about 43% lower on a Smith machine compared to regular barbell squats. This can create lazy lifting technique and will only provide a small fraction of the results that you can get from doing these exercises with regular barbells and dumbbells, especially in regard to functional strength. Another machine that you want to stay away from is the hip abduction and adduction machine. These machines are typically used to train the glutes and the inner thighs, but there are far better alternatives that are far more effective like squats and lunges. Both of these machines require heavy loads to be challenging. One immediate issue is that naturally your body would never lift heavy loads this way in real life. The only time these muscles would be engaged at a higher level would be when you're doing single leg activities like walking lunges, and they would mostly just be used for stabilization, not force output. Instead, as you get stronger at the hip abduction machine, you're going to target a muscle known as the TFL or the tensor fasciae latae. This muscle can easily get overworked and tight, which will pull on another muscle known as the IT band, and that quite often leads to knee pain. The heavy weight loads used on both the adductor and the abductor machines can also easily lead to a lower back injury. I've personally seen this time and time again, and advising clients to stop using these machines usually helped improve their lower back pain. The last thing that I'll say is that these machines do not and will not help you reduce fat from your inner and outer thighs. For most of you, this may be common sense, but many people using these machines are under the impression that they will slim their thighs by simply opening and closing their legs with added resistance. Next is the leg press machine. Luckily, you don't have to get rid of the leg press entirely, but I do recommend you change up the way that you're using it, especially if you have issues with your lower back. Many people believe that the leg press is a safer alternative to barbell squats for your lower back, but that's not at all the case. When doing leg presses, your back is pinned against a pad in a way where it becomes more and more difficult to maintain the natural lumbar curve as your knees bend and come closer to your chest. As you go further and further down, your pelvis will begin to round forward while pinned between the weight and the pad behind you. You don't have to take my word for it. Dr. Stuart McGill is a well-renowned professor and researcher that has been studying the mechanisms that cause back pain and how to rehabilitate back pain people for over 30 years. And in his book, Low Back Disorders, he clearly states that the leg press sometimes causes the pelvis to rotate away from the backrest when the weight is lowered, leading to lumbar flexion, which produces herniating conditions for your discs. This means that you can only perform short reps in a limited range of motion. And on any given rep that you decide to get that nice stretch by going a little lower down, you run the risk of a serious lower back injury. Most people are better off replacing the leg press with something that allows for a more full range of motion like squats, lunges, or Bulgarians, which all help develop your posterior chain, your core, and your entire lower body in a way that's more transferable to real life activities like lifting a box off the floor. When you're squatting, pretty much every muscle is being recruited. Even the stabilizer muscles in your feet are actively preventing you from falling on your face. On the other hand, the leg press is entirely stabilized for you by the machine. With all that said, I know many of you still love the leg press. So after exhausting your legs with something like squats and lunges, you can add 3 or 4 sets of leg press as a finisher at the end of your workout. This way you don't have to use a ton of weight for it to be effective. But this is very important. I recommend that you do it with only one leg at a time while the other leg stays down. By keeping one leg down, you ensure that your pelvis will stay locked and it'll be prevented from rotating as the weight comes down, making it much safer for your lower back. Next is the torso rotation machine, also known as the seated twist machine. If you want to avoid an injury directly to your spine, I would stay away from this one. It's usually set up where you put your knees in between 2 pads and you rotate your lower body from side to side. There are a number of issues with this machine. For one, if you accidentally turn too far on any rep, you can cause serious injury to your spine and your discs. So if you are planning on using this machine anyway, you should at the very least limit your range of motion and use lighter weight. The other issue is that even if you do the exercise very carefully, the lumbar spine is not designed to handle this type of twisting movement. Higher segments of the spine, like the thoracic spine, are more so designed for twisting. The seated twist machine keeps your upper body locked while requiring you to twist your lower body, putting more pressure on the lower spine, which isn't designed for this kind of twisting. In regard to athletic performance, the core is mostly supposed to decelerate rotational force rather than accelerate it. Now, on top of all of this high injury risk, it simply doesn't make sense to use this exercise because it's not that effective for your core, and you can easily find better alternatives in the core video that I'll link up below. Another exercise machine that many people use incorrectly is the lat pull down. Specifically, I'm talking about behind the head lat pull downs. Going behind the head for both presses and pull downs is something that was made popular a long time ago. Many bodybuilders around the time that Arnold was bodybuilding would go behind the neck to get some kind of additional benefits. However, since then, we've learned that there are no additional muscle building benefits by going behind the neck. In fact, usually when you press or pull behind the head, you'll have to lighten the weight load because your back and your shoulders are weaker in that position. By going in front of your head, you should be able to lift significantly more weight, which should provide a more effective muscle building stimulus. Aside from all that, you are much more likely to damage your rotator cuff while pulling or pressing behind the head. So really, the risk to reward ratio makes no sense. Simply stay in front of your head when doing lat pull downs and military presses for better results with lower injury risk. Next is the seated crunch machine, which definitely will target your abs. However, there are much better ab exercises available, like stability ball crunches, decline sit-ups, and weighted leg raises with pulse-ups, for example. You begin this exercise with your core and torso already in a flexed position with your legs locked behind pads. This is a position that most Americans already spend much of their day in, since most of us spend a lot of time seated and in a torso flexed position. The machine actually prevents you from being able to come back far enough to travel through a full range of motion on each crunch. It's far more effective to go through a full range of motion, especially the negative portion of each contraction. You're also going to do 0 for your deep tissue core stabilizer muscles. If you continue to increase the weight load that you lift on this machine without strengthening those stabilizer muscles with other exercises first, you will highly increase your risk of injury to your spine. Another set of machines that I would not use are the Selectorizer chest press and shoulder press machines. These are not the same as the newer hammer strength equipment, and they're not the same as the newer free motion chest and shoulder press machines. I'm talking about those old Cybex Selectorizer type of machines. Unlike hammer strength, you can only press both sides up at the same time. There is no unilateral option to train each side separately the way there is with hammer strength. Also, the path of these old machines is very different and very bad for your joints. If you were to do a chest press or a shoulder press with free weights, you would notice that your presses don't go straight up and down. Instead, they follow a more arc-like path on the way up. These old school Selectorizer machines that you see in almost all gyms force your joints to move in a straight line, which over time will irritate and most likely injure your shoulders. There's also no stabilization component involved in these exercises. So while your external muscles like your chest, shoulders, and triceps get stronger, your deeper stabilizer muscles like your rotator cuff get very little stimulation. If you do something functional in real life, or even a slightly more functional upper body exercise, let's say like the bench press, even though your muscles can lift the weight, your rotator cuff could wind up with an injury. The point is there are far better chest and shoulder press options like dumbbell presses, barbell presses, and even hammer strength equipment is a better option. Finally, last but not least, is the butt blaster machine. Now, this machine is mostly used by women, but I've seen many men use it as well. Unfortunately, it's not that great at targeting your glutes effectively. Most people already have inactive glutes from sitting in a chair all day. When people use this machine, especially beginners, they're much more likely to target their already tight and overworked hamstrings rather than their glutes. I've also noticed that many people use this machine thinking it's safer than doing regular squats. But you'll get far better results for your glutes by focusing on perfecting your form and then upping your weight with exercises like barbell squats and dumbbell lunges. So those are the 8 machines that I recommend you're at least being careful with. I did of course want to mention other exercises that you should not be doing like upright rows, but upright rows are usually done with a barbell rather than a machine, so I left it out. There are other machines that aren't worth your time, but these 8 are the ones that I felt are most important to warn you about. Keep in mind, some of these exercises may work for you without an issue. Everyone's limb lengths and physical attributes are at least slightly different. If an exercise doesn't bother you, feel free to continue doing it, but that still doesn't change the fact that I believe there are better, more effective, and safer alternatives to all the exercises I discussed in this video. As far as gym gear, I don't recommend that you use lifting gloves at all unless you specifically want to keep your hands smooth. I do recommend that you get used to doing barbell squats without the barbell pad. I also recommend that you don't overuse the weightlifting belt and the straps on most of your sets because your grip and core strength will suffer and it'll be prevented from getting stronger along with your other muscles. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also, if you really feel like you're stuck and you want extra help with reducing stubborn body fat or packing on muscle, my team and I can definitely help by providing you with a full 42-day workout plan, a full 42-day diet plan with a recipe book that's based on your preferences, as well as a full video exercise library so you know exactly what you're doing every day. And of course, you'll also be assigned a coach that'll keep you on track and answer any questions that might come up. The best part is that if you follow our plan and hit your goal, you'll get the entire program for free. Most of our clients aim to lose a minimum of 20 pounds or 5% of their body fat, and we have a long history of hitting those numbers and a proven track record of success. So if you'd like to find out more, you can click the link below in the description, or you can just visit my website directly at gravitytransformation.com. I'll see you guys soon.